Introduction. It was a cold October evening at Millstone High School, a typical suburban school in Pennsylvania. The cheerleaders were practicing in the gym, the football team ran drills on the field, and a few students stayed late in the library. Unbeknownst to everyone, the night would take a horrifying turn. Story 1. The Locker That Shouldn't Open. Eleanor, a shy sophomore with thick glasses and a penchant for detective novels, was organizing books in the library for extra credit. She was alone, except for Mrs. Callahan, the librarian, who was dozing off at the desk. The fluorescent lights flickered overhead as Eleanor heard the faint sound of a locker slamming shut. 6. Curiosity got the better of her. She tiptoed into the hallway, where the sound grew louder and more rhythmic, like someone furiously trying to close a locker door that wouldn't stay shut. The hallway was deserted, its polished floors gleaming under the dim lights. 5. She followed the noise to locker number 333, which had been locked for years. The rumor was that a student, Jason Whitaker, had disappeared in the 90s, and his locker was sealed after authorities found unsettling scratches and dried blood inside. Eleanor's hands trembled as she approached. The locker rattled violently, as if something inside was struggling to get out. Gathering courage, she touched the handle, and it flung open on its own. Empty. She breathed a sigh of relief but froze when she saw her reflection in the mirror affixed inside. Her reflection didn't match her movements. Instead, it grinned maliciously and whispered, "You shouldn't have opened it." The locker slammed shut. Eleanor turned to run, but the hallway was now impossibly long, stretching into a darkness that swallowed the light. From behind, the locker opened again, and something wet and cold wrapped around her ankle. Her scream was cut short as she was yanked into the void. Story 2. The Janitors Warning. Meanwhile, on the other side of the school, Caleb and Travis, two juniors notorious for pranks, roamed the abandoned East Wing. The area had been closed for years after a fire gutted several classrooms. The boys heard stories about a janitor who had died in the blaze, his ghost rumored to haunt the halls. "Come on, Travis. Let's check out the old science lab," Caleb dared, his flashlight illuminating the charred walls. The air grew colder as they ventured deeper, their footsteps echoing eerily. Inside the lab, they found old desks, melted beakers, and a blackboard still covered in chalk equations. On the far wall, "Get out" was scrawled in ash. "Very funny," Travis said, nudging Caleb. "Did you bring spray paint?" "That wasn't me," Caleb whispered, suddenly uneasy. Before they could leave, a low, raspy voice echoed through the room. "You shouldn't be here." The boys turned to see a figure standing in the doorway, a man in a burnt janitor's uniform, his face half-melted and oozing, his sunken eyes locked onto theirs. "Get out before it's too late," he growled. Terrified, they bolted, but the hallway behind them seemed endless, just like Eleanor had experienced. They glanced back to see the janitor shambling after them, his heavy footsteps growing louder. As they turned a corner, they collided with Principal Mason. "What's going on?" he asked, annoyed. Before they could explain, the janitor appeared, pointing a skeletal finger at Caleb and Travis. "They'll never leave." Principal Mason's face twisted in horror. "Run!" he shouted, but it was too late. The lights flickered, and the walls began to collapse inward. Twist ending. The next morning, the school was abuzz with news of Eleanor, Caleb, and Travis missing. Security footage revealed nothing unusual, except that all three were last seen entering the East Wing. Principal Mason reviewed the footage in his office, his hands shaking. As he paused the video on the janitor's ghostly figure, he noticed something chilling. The janitor's name tag read, M. Mason. A knock came at his door. When he turned, the burnt janitor stood there, grinning. "It's your turn now," the ghost hissed before the office plunged into darkness. The school was closed indefinitely after Principal Mason vanished, and the East Wing was sealed permanently. But late at night, the sound of a locker slamming and ghostly whispers still echoed through Millstone High School.